All right. So there's three areas that I want to talk to you about. One is the Trump shakedown of law firms, which is just fascinating in its own way. It's so beyond anything that I've seen even here in Chicago, and the machine worked differently with corporate law firms in Chicago. They were a little more subtle or nuanced about how they kept them in line. And then it's the Donald Trump sending out his goons to just snatch people off the street, and declaring that they violated something or other. They usually don't even have evidence. It's just like, oh, he's in this gang, or he's anti-Semitic, or he published an article that was critical of the country. Who knows? It's so vague. And there's an article, I think I may have sent this to you, the great rocker Neil Young, who is very critical of Trump these days and has dual Canadian and U.S. citizenship, wrote an essay or put it, I forget how he got the word out, social media somehow, that he's concerned that Trump's goons won't let him back into the country when he tries to come to the United States for his tour. And then if we have time, little Eric Adams update, mayor of New York. The judge dismissed the case after the justice dropped it, but there was a little twist there I'd love to talk to you about. Let's start with the first one, shakedowns of corporate law firms. And I just want to say this before Jim gets started. I was concerned, Jim coming on, he's a practicing attorney in Cook County. I'm appealing to my good friend Joe Rogan to come to Jim's assistance. If Trump goes after Jim, because Jim exercised his First Amendment protected constitutional right, Joe Rogan, to criticize the emperor, I know you will defend him because you believe in free speech. In fact, Elon Musk, I know you too will defend Jim Coogan if they come after him. If the goon squad comes after Jim Coogan, I can expect Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and who else? Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, aren't they all on the First Amendment free expression bandwagon now? So all of them will come to Jim Coogan. So Jim, don't worry about it. Speak your mind, okay? Because you're going to have Rogan in your corner, Elon Musk in your corner. Oh, like, I don't want to say anything that gets Donnie mad. Your thoughts on the shakedown of law firms? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's this has demonstrated a huge leap forward in Donald Trump's attacks on the rule of law, on the Constitution, on the interplay between the executive branch and the powers of the president and the courts. We've seen and heard this for a very long time. He doesn't respect judges. He doesn't respect any laws. He doesn't respect the process of law. And it's not difficult to understand why. I mean, his entire life is based upon just asserting power when he chooses to, and he doesn't want to be constrained or checked by anything. And so this is why his private life and his business life was littered with, I mean, you know what, it actually occurred to me thinking about this show. He might be the most litigious person in the history of humankind. Just between his personal lawsuits, his business lawsuits, the lawsuits that he's generated as the president, the things that he has initiated to sue other people, it's quite possible. And that's not easy to do, considering even his business wasn't that big of a business. It was always very visible, but we're not talking about Alphabet or Meta or one of those companies, because this started before he even became president in 2017. He was attacking the judge who was overseeing the fraud case for his fraudulent university. And if I recall correctly, he was attacking him and saying that judge couldn't be fair because he had a Hispanic last name. The guy was born in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And I think before he became a judge, worked with the Department of Justice or the ATF or something like that, doing like drug trafficking and gun trafficking cases. So somebody who actually served in a fairly dangerous and serious role in the law before he became a judge, but it doesn't matter. So of course he attacked Judge Merchan during the New York case. He attacks judges in any district, in any appellate court, and at the Supreme Court when it suits him. And then of course his gaggle of goons goes out and now is supporting the notion of either suspending the ability of judges. Josh Hawley, I think, was going to introduce a bill to suspend the ability of judges to issue nationwide injunctions which is bonkers because the whole purpose of those injunctions is to try to have a uniform application of the law. But he's always attacked the rule of law. And it's been true because of all the criminal things that have been alleged against him. And that includes the allegations for sexual assault that have been around him long before he was president. And his businesses, constantly involved in litigation over not paying bills, underpaying bills, property tax litigation. So it makes him upset when anything holds him accountable. And the legal system has generally held him accountable, at least when it wasn't undermined by some other external force. The fact that he became president was the only reason that the Jack Smith cases were dropped against him for his election interference in Georgia or for his role in the riot in Washington, D.C. So the other problem with all this is that throughout his life, he has consistently got away with this. The pushback, the punchback to anything that's ever brought against him. A lot of other forces have conspired to make it so that these consequences don't really happen. He was convicted of 34 felonies in New York, but the sentence was basically like a little pat on the back and walk out the door because Judge Merchan's hands were tied by the time it came to sentencing because he'd been reelected. So now he is extending this even further, emboldened by the system that is refusing to defend itself. I know on this show I've come on here before and advocated that the United States Supreme Court needs to defend itself and defend the Constitution and defend its own prerogatives, and that the decision that they issued last year about presidential immunity was just a total giveaway. Big surprise, he interpreted that exactly how I said he would and how thoughtful legal scholars said he would, because he sees that as them endorsing him doing whatever the F he feels like doing. So these individual attacks are of a new kind, issuing specific executive orders targeting law firms for things that he wants to have retribution against them for, like employing Andrew Weisman, the attorney who was involved in one of the prosecutions against him. Even a law firm that previously employed Jack Smith, doesn't even employ him now, but going after them for that. Going after firms for having, I think the law firm that we chatted about this morning over text, the Wilkie firm, where Doug Emhoff is a partner, because they worked on behalf of the two election workers that were defamed by Rudy Giuliani. So these are just personal things that he doesn't like. And then if you read the executive orders, they are, of course, written in broad terms, falsely stating all kinds of nonsense, like that these firms are somehow a threat to national security. And by the way, when I read that part, that sticks out, because then you start to wonder, to what degree will they enforce this, or what punitive actions will they take against these firms? Because you start invoking national security, and now you start to wonder, is the Department of Justice going to prosecute people? Are they going to start arresting people? And this will bleed into another thing we're going to talk about, which is due process. But I struggle to understand, even though they're MAGA people, even though they're like quasi-MAGA people in the Republican Party, why they don't see the connection between completely disregarding the notion of due process, where they don't feel like they even have to have evidence to sweep people off the streets, and targeting individual Americans and law firms and companies. At some point, the two are going to meet. They're just going to start arresting lawyers, because one of those executive orders was intended to bar them from being present in government buildings. Ben, for 2,000 trivia points, do you know whether every federal courthouse in this country is a government building? Yes or no?
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
think about what you're saying there. Then he's basically barring lawyers from showing up in court. That, it's bonkers. He does not have the power to do it, but the assertion of that power is the problem. And then the rest of us have to spend time cleaning up the mess. These lawsuits have to be filed on behalf of Jenner and Block, on behalf of Perkins Coie, two firms that I applaud their efforts standing up for themselves. And I applaud the law firms that are defending them by filing these lawsuits, declaring that, or asking for injunctive relief, a court to say this is improper. And they have consistently said so far.
Yeah.
Between you and me, it's a layup. This is not a difficult thing for those judges to decide, because he does not have these powers. But we're in a moment where and just like everything else that they do, they being the broader Trump coalition, they will keep pushing on every single thing until something breaks.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
they don't really care. They just want to reset the Overton window for discussion. They want to reset the bars and the lines as far as how far they can go. And as we all know, and even if you're a Trump lover, you actually love him for this, the level of punitive actions that he will take against another human being is unlimited.
Yeah.
He will hurt people and he enjoys it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's business
and it-
or personal or just incarcerating people.
And this particular tactic is working at what level? So you did mention the law firms that are standing up to him, and a shout out to them. But there's also law firms that have capitulated. And I know it's easy for me, Jim, I always say this, in my attic, to urge somebody else to take the fight. I'm just one dude with a microphone. These are some of the wealthiest, most powerful law firms in America. And to watch them just quit, like, I know they must have some money saved up in a bank to ride this one out. I know legal fees won't be a problem because they're law firms. So
they have friends that are lawyers, presumably. Yeah.
They have friends who are lawyers. And they quit. And it's such a shakedown. And I'm going to equate it to Chicago and Cook County. And this is me speaking, not Jim, because he has to operate in Chicago and Cook County. But I've watched the interaction, the interplay between the Democratic machine in Chicago and the large corporate law firms of Chicago for years, Jim. And the way in which it's not just the corporate law firms, but it's just like the money industry in Chicago, just in general, the business community of Chicago, the way it interacts with powerful mayors, Rahm Emanuel, Mayor Daley, Daddy Daley way back in the day, the way they silence the dissent, the way they routinely support the mayor on initiatives, the way they show up at press conferences to declare the mayor a great visionary and support whatever idiocy he is proposing, the way they donate to his campaigns. They understand how the game plays. They know that this Democratic machine makes the judges that they're going to, anoints the judges that they're going to have to go before in Cook County proceedings. So they don't want to upset the apple cart. They look the other way while Ed Burke is playing his property tax game business. They look the other way like Michael Joseph Madigan is playing the same game. They just make their peace. And every now and then they'll take a pro bono case that may, go against the city, but it's like the mayor will look the other way on a pro bono case. Okay. You get what I'm saying? Like, okay, you're doing that. You're trying to free one prisoner from an unlawful sentence. He was unfairly treated by the system. We'll look the other way. All right. So there's this kind of game they play. This is just trampling that. Donald Trump told Kamala Harris's husband's law firm that they had to kick in money for pro bono cases. I think the amount that they said in the Washington Post was $100 million of pro bono, unspecified pro bono cases. Suddenly Donald Trump's cause is getting free legal representation. Jim, we were talking about a year ago, like what lawyer in his right mind would represent Donald Trump? Well, apparently Doug Emhoff's law firm has capitulated and now they'll represent Donald Trump. We'll see if they sue Kamala Harris. That'll be the ultimate humiliation of Doug Emhoff. Okay, if they find some reason to go after Kamala Harris. Donald Trump has threatened to go after Biden, Harris, Clinton, so it's not out of the question.